This episode brought to you by MEEPLE your source for high-quality custom board game inserts. MEEPLE Realty, think inside the box. Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we're going to learn how to play Zephyr, Winds of Change, which is a steampunk-esque airship mission-based battle game. So without anything else, let's get right to the table and I'll show you how to play. The first thing the player must do to begin a game of Zephyr is select a mission. The missions vary in length and difficulty, but each mission card has similar information on it. Every mission has a name, in this case plain and simple, and an estimated time per player, in this case 20 minutes. On this section of the mission card, players will find what assignments will be available during the mission, what form of elimination is used during the mission, and how difficult the mission is. A quick note regarding this mission, plain and simple. The difficulty is listed as hard, but the designer has clarified that it's in fact easy and is the recommended starting scenario for new players. Underneath the title of the mission, players will find some flavor text explaining the story behind the selected scenario. Underneath the flavor text, players will find any goals associated with the mission, as well as any special instructions for that mission. This is the mission progress track, and sometimes on this track, players will find mission events notated by an icon. In this case, there's one at the end of the mission indicating an enemy commander will be faced. An event replaces a typical day's activities with those defined on the mission card. Once your mission is selected, set up the assignment deck by including only the assignments that have at least one icon from the mission's assignment section under the mission details. So in this case, all assignments that have this telescope icon will create the assignment deck. So missions such as Double Trouble, which do have that telescope icon, will be included, whereas Headhunter, which does not have that icon, will be excluded from the assignment deck. Once you've gathered all the appropriate assignments, give them a good shuffle and place them face down in the play area. Each player will then select her ship and receive her starting supplies. At the beginning of a mission, and anytime a player is not on assignment or on patrol, the player is considered to be at the resupply barge. While at the resupply, players may freely purchase ship upgrades and hire crew as long as they have the necessary scrap, the required space on their ship, and no other restrictions apply. Each player's ship has its own set of unique abilities. One of these abilities is listed directly on the ship mat itself. Each ship also comes with its own deck of 10 starting action cards, which represent the ship's default starting capabilities. Let's take a closer look at the ship mat. Here, you'll see the name of the ship, in this case, the Imperial Scimitar. Directly underneath the name of the ship, the player will see how many cards she may draw and how she can increase that amount. The slots on the left side of the mat represent the possible hull upgrades the ship may obtain. The cross symbols represent hull structure, while the shield symbols represent hull armor. These upgrades represent the amount of damage the player's ship may sustain before taking critical damage. The spaces located on the ship itself represent potential system upgrades the ship may receive. These upgrades give additional actions that your ship may execute during the game. When selecting her ship, the player first needs to obtain her action card deck. She can tell which action card deck is hers by matching this symbol with the ship symbol. There are 4 other items the player needs as well. This token is placed on the ship's ability found on the ship mat. When that ability is used, the token will be flipped over. This targeting reticule is used to identify which enemy ship the player is targeting in the event she finds herself facing down more than one enemy. This scrap meter is used throughout the game to track how much scrap the player currently has. Scrap is the game's currency. And finally, the player needs to grab her matching ship standee. Now that the player has selected her ship, she will likely want to spend some of her starting scrap to upgrade it a bit. The player has access to the resupply barge at the beginning of a mission and at the end of each day that she's not on an assignment, as we've previously discussed. And if the player can't buy everything she wants right at the beginning, she shouldn't worry too much. Soon she'll be out on assignment and with any luck, earning scrap in no time. So how does a player go about upgrading her ship? There are 3 tiers of upgrades available for purchase: bronze, silver, and gold. These cost 10, 20, and 30 scrap. There are also epic upgrades which can only be obtained by defeating enemy commanders. Bronze, silver, and gold upgrades may be sold back to the resupply for half their original cost. Hull structure upgrades are bronze tier, and hull armor upgrades are silver tier. There are 2 sides to hull upgrades: the unbroken side and the broken side. When installing a hull upgrade, place it in the lowest slot of its kind, unbroken side up. Structure upgrades will repair automatically when returning to the resupply. Armor upgrades, on the other hand, automatically repair at the start of each day. When installing a system upgrade, the player locates the card of the ability she wants and its matching tile. Place the tile on an empty system upgrade space matching the symbol of the upgrade. Then shuffle the card into the action deck belonging to that player. There are 3 different system upgrade types players may purchase. Attacks mainly deal damage and are the primary method of engaging enemies during combat. Maneuvers reduce or evade incoming damage. Tech actions are utility-based actions which provide a wide range of abilities from repairing hull to drawing additional cards. Each ship will have a different mix of systems the player may purchase when upgrading that ship. You'll notice the Imperial Scimitar has no available slots for maneuver systems at all, and so the players will only be able to focus on attack systems and tech systems. If a system upgrade is purchased or otherwise obtained while at the resupply, the player may immediately install it, again shuffling the card into the action deck belonging to that player. If, however, the upgrade is obtained while at a different location, the player keeps the system near her ship mat but does not install it. This is called keeping the system in cargo. Once back at the resupply barge, the player may then install the system. If the player's ship takes critical damage prior to making it to the resupply barge, however, all systems stored in her cargo area are lost. As the captain of her ship, the player is able to perform any type of action by playing cards from her hand. These cards represent the captain and her crew activating the various systems and abilities of her ship. However, the player, as the captain, is just one person and therefore can only play a single action per turn, unless she finds a way to play more actions through various effects. One of the ways to gain additional actions is through the effects of certain cards. For instance, Sprocket Rocket will deal 1 damage, but then it allows you to play 1 additional tech card this phase. Another common way to gain access to multiple actions at a time is to hire crew members. Crew may be hired at the resupply barge for 20 scrap. To hire a crew member, first the player selects which faction the crew will be a part of by selecting the appropriate faction card from those available. The available factions are Greaser, Imperial, Merchant, Rogue, and Bandit. In this case, I've chosen to hire a crew member from the Rogue faction. After choosing the faction, the player must then draw the crew member's personality. The player does this by shuffling the personality deck face down, cutting the deck, and taking the exposed personality. If the exposed card is in fact a companion, the player then immediately draws an additional personality. In the rare case that the player draws a second companion, she should return it to the deck and draw again until she draws a personality. The player places the personality card on top of the faction card, as you can see I've done here. If the player also drew a companion, it goes on top of the personality card. These faction and personality cards each add additional abilities that you may activate throughout the game. The faction card, personality card, and companion, if the player drew one, do not separate until a crew member dies or is released from your employment. Crew may be released from your employment at any time, but the player receives no refund for doing so. Each ship has a number of crew stations located along the bottom of the mat. The greaser tub in this instance has 3 crew stations. Most crew stations have a symbol associated with it. Some crew stations, such as these 2, have no symbol associated with them, and so there's no additional bonus that you gain by placing a crew member in those slots. A crew member who occupies a crew station allows 1 additional card of the type indicated to be played each phase, as long as that crew member remains in that station. So in this case, Dasmodeus the Elder allows the player to play 1 additional maneuver card each phase. A player may freely move crew members on her ship from station to station anytime, except during a reaction phase or the attack phase of battle. Crew members may be killed through the effects found on certain cards. If a crew member dies, the personality is removed from the game, while the faction card is returned in supply and available for future use. If the crew member had a companion, that companion may be transferred to an adjacent crew member. If the player has no more crew members, then the companion is lost as well. Now that the player has a ship, some upgrades, and possibly some crew, she's going to start her chosen mission. The mission card outlines the structure of the game over a series of regions. Each of these boxes represents a single day. So for the mission Plain and Simple, it is broken into 3 different regions with 2 days in Region 1, 2 days in Region 2, and 3 days, including the commander, in Region 3. Players will keep track of which day they're on with a white cube marker. Anytime a marker is placed on the first day of a region, immediately reveal a new region card. This includes the first day of the mission. Region cards define special global effects that persist while players are in this particular region. Also, upon entering a region, all players not currently on assignment draw an assignment card. Assignments are optional jobs which, if completed, will result in rewards. After reviewing the drawn assignment card, the player may choose to discard the assignment and instead patrol the region for the day, or the player may accept the assignment and embark upon that assignment. Every assignment has a different goal, so players should read theirs carefully to make sure they understand how to fulfill its requirements. Assignments vary in length, and it is possible one assignment may carry players through more than one region. It's for players to keep this in mind, as often later regions have more difficult enemies. The player who selects the assignment places her ship on the space with the arrow. That player is known as the party leader. The party leader has the final say during an assignment when resolving any disputes that may arise among allies. Any player not already committed to a different assignment may choose to join this player by placing their ship in the Allies section of the assignment. Note that allies are limited by the number of ally spaces, so in the case of this mission, no more allies could join. Each space on an assignment represents a single day. Each day has an icon within it indicating what will occur on that day. Any player may abandon an assignment at the end of a day. If an assignment has no ships assigned to it at the end of a day, it is discarded and cannot be completed. If the party leader decides to abandon an assignment and has allies on that assignment, she must first select from her allies a player to replace her. If the assignment is successfully completed, the party leader collects the reward and then may split it amongst any allies if she wishes. Also, upon completing an assignment, the party leader immediately draws a new assignment and may embark on that one. However, any allies do not draw a new assignment until they enter a new region. Now that we have an idea of how to acquire and complete assignments, which are the main focus of the game, let's take a look at what players will be doing from turn to turn. On a turn, players will take part in 5 distinct phases, which can be found here on this reference card. Those phases are move, explore, complete assignments, return to resupply, and trade. During the move phase, players will move the day marker to the next day on the mission progress track, progress along current assignments, or move their ship to patrol. If it's the very first turn of a mission, players will simply add the marker to day 1 of the mission track. Upon entering a new region during the move phase, remember to draw and reveal a new region card. Also remember that upon entering a new region, all players not currently on assignment draw an assignment card. If the players have not entered a new region, players not on assignment may go on patrol or join a new assignment that was just drawn by another player. Remember, party leaders who have completed an assignment immediately draw a new one and therefore can begin a new assignment without having gone into a new region. This does not occur with other players. Under no circumstances may a player join an assignment that is already underway. Assignments may only be joined at their beginning. The exploration phase activates the space your standee is currently on. When the space is activated, the player will reveal the day's situation. While on assignment with an ally, only the party leader tracks the mission progress. However, the space the party leader occupies applies to all ships on the assignment. The most common space is marked with a question mark, which indicates standard exploration. Each player in turn order draws a card from her choice of either the skirmish deck or the scavenge deck. If a battle is revealed, then once all explorations have been revealed, that player must begin fighting it on their own until an ally in the same area is able to join them during the regroup phase. Lettered spaces are unique to that particular assignment and are explained in detail on the assignment card. Unlike with regular exploration spaces, all allies on this assignment participate in this event from the start. The same is true for spaces with enemy commanders and warlords. From time to time, players may find themselves without an assignment or may even deliberately choose not to go on assignment. On these days, during the exploration phase, the player will go on patrol around the resupply by placing the ship marker on the current region card. Any number of ships may patrol a region at the same time. Patrol days are treated the same as normal exploration days. However, when on patrol, players return to the resupply, refreshing their abilities and repairing their ship at the end of each day. Many exploration cards have the opportunity for reaction from the player who drew it. This allows the player to use her ship to solve problems or avoid dangers. The reaction on the card will instruct the player to draw your action cards. The player draws their current hand limit worth of action cards. The player then plays the cards she wishes, obeying the limitations of her captain's play, crew slots, crew abilities, and faction abilities. Once all cards have been played and abilities have been activated, resolve the exploration card by comparing the actions you were able to play with the description on the card. With this particular card, it instructs us to draw enemy ships until you find one Imperial ship and discard the rest. And then that ship will be plus 1 tier of difficulty. And we'll discuss the tiers of difficulty a little bit later. Then it tells you to react, at which point the player will draw however many cards their current hand limit is. Then perhaps after looking at her hand, the player plays a single attack card, which would then allow her to resolve this portion of the card. Once the situation has been resolved, the player discards the exploration card, all cards the player played, and any cards left over in the player's hand. If the day's events result in an enemy ship being encountered, the player is now engaged in battle. The player cannot leave that battle unless an effect allows her to do so, or more likely, until she either wins or loses that battle. The first thing the players must do when setting up for a battle is add cubes to the enabled system of the enemy ships in the battle. The numbers located in the boxes of the enemy ship refer to the tier of the current region shown on the mission card. In this case, on day 2, it's tier 1. Place a cube in all slots equal to the current tier or lower. So while in a tier 1 region, misbehavior would look like this. However, if the player was in a tier 2 region, misbehavior would look like this instead. During a battle, the first 2 phases, attack and regroup, repeatedly cycle until all ships from one side have been defeated or otherwise removed from the battle. The third phase, salvage, is only accessible if players are victorious. The attack phase is broken up into 3 steps: declare targets, draw cards and player actions, and resolve enemy actions. The first step is the declare target step, and so the player must choose which ship in the battle she is targeting. The player places her target token on the selected enemy ship. It's likely during the course of a mission players will find themselves facing multiple enemy ships at once. When this occurs, clearly declaring targets during this first step is very important. Each player in the battle may only target one ship at a time. The players may target the enemy ships in whatever way they see fit. All players may target a single enemy ship, or the players may evenly split their targets among the enemy ships, or anything in between. During the declare target step, players also decide how they will be targeted by the enemy ships. Thematically, this represents the players setting their battle formation. All enemy ships must target a friendly player. However, the targets may be split in whatever way the players feel is best. In other words, all enemy ships could target a single friendly ship, or the enemy ship targets could be evenly split amongst friendly ships, or anything in between. Only after all targets have been selected, both friendly and enemy, may players move on to the second step of the battle and draw their action cards. This phase of the battle proceeds exactly the same way as the reaction phase we previously discussed. Players start by drawing their hand limit of cards. As a battle will often extend past 1 or 2 rounds, the player may find her action card deck to be running low. If the player finds she needs to draw cards at any point in the game but her deck is empty, she then shuffles her discard pile to create a new action deck. Players may play their cards in any order, but must make sure not to exceed the limitations of their captain's play, crew stations, and abilities. To play a card, the player places it in front of her, and any actions on that card that interact with enemy ships are not resolved until the third step of combat. However, any action that does not involve an enemy ship is immediately resolved. So, for example, in this case, you can see that I have 1 damage to one of my hull structure. I also have a crew member in this tech slot that's a bandit. I could choose as my captain ability to play modular hull, which immediately repairs one of my currently damaged hull upgrades. However, I also want to try to deal damage to the enemy this turn, so I can use the bandit faction ability, which allows me to draw 1 card and then play an attack card. I choose to play precision guns, which deals 1 damage. Then, since this crew member is in the tech slot, I can play 1 additional tech card, and I choose to play noble inspiration, which allows me to place one of my crew's faction or personality abilities off cooldown, bringing the bandit faction ability back online for me to play in the future. So, to recap, modular hull and noble inspiration both are cards with abilities that do not affect enemy ships and therefore are resolved immediately upon being played. However, precision guns deals 1 damage to an enemy ship and therefore will not be resolved until the following step. Once players have played all the cards they wish to play and activated any abilities they wish to activate, the third step of battle, resolve enemy actions, begins. Actions resolve starting with any enemy commanders and then proceeding through ships by their marker count. For example, if these were the enemy ships the player was facing, you'd start by resolving actions involving Luther, then move down to the misbehavior, and finally followed by the disturbance. Regardless of the number of crew on board a ship, every enemy ship has a captain and therefore will roll at least one die. Enemy ships then roll additional die for each of their crew members. After rolling the appropriate number of dice for a ship, compare the results to the chart on the right side of the ship's card to see what actions that ship is taking. Any damage will be dealt to the enemy ship's previously determined target unless it somehow is reduced or evaded by the actions previously played by that player. So in this case, Luther has rolled a 1, a 2, and a 4. So you can see that's 1 damage, 2 damage, and evade 1 attack. After revealing these actions that this enemy ship has taken, the players targeting or targeted by that ship resolve all actions available to them. If a reduction action is taken, then simply subtract the indicated amount from the total damage dealt. In this case, Luther is dealt a total of 3 damage. Deflection allows a player to reduce the total damage by 1 for each cube previously placed on the card. So in this case, Luther's total damage of 3 can be reduced to 1. 1 evade action will negate 1 attack in its entirety. Evades rolled by an enemy ship are applied against the highest damage amount first. If there is a tie, the evade will be applied against the highest valued system, and if there is still a tie, it will be used against the first card played out of the tied cards. Let's say Burst Cannon was the highest damage dealt to Luther by the players in this round of play. The 4 that he rolled is evade 1 attack, and despite this being a 3 damage card, the entire card is negated by 1 evade. Alternatively, if a player plays an evade, in this case evade 1 attack and draw 1 card with the Wind Rider maneuver action, the player can choose which attack to evade. So most likely the player will choose the 2 that Luther rolled, which was 2 damage, but theoretically the player could also choose to evade the 1 damage if for some reason that was advantageous. If a ship receives damage, whether enemy or friendly, its hull is always damaged at a 1-to-1 ratio. So, in this case right here, this 4 is evade 1 attack and will negate the burst cannon because it is the highest damage dealt to the ship. This deal 1 damage from the matchlock repeater will get through and deal 1 damage to the ship. Meanwhile, this wildfire cannon deals 1 direct damage. Direct damage can neither be evaded or reduced, and so this one will get through no matter what. It's important to note that when dealing damage to a ship, whether enemy or friendly, the player always deals damage starting at the top and working downward. Damage is dealt to friendly ships by flipping over these tiles. If 2 damage are dealt, you'd flip that armor over first, and then this structure. Keep in mind that thematically, all of these actions have occurred at the same time. So even if a ship is destroyed, it may take another down with it. After resolving all the actions in the previous steps, players will enter the regroup phase of combat. First, check to see if any player ships have all their hull upgrades damaged, and if so, remove them from battle. So in this case, the Imperial Scimitar will be removed from the battle. Next, check to see if any enemy ships have all their hull upgrades damaged, and if so, remove them from the battle. So in this case, the misbehavior will be removed, but the disturbance will remain. If both sides still have ships remaining, the battle will continue. However, if all the ships from one side have been destroyed, the battle is over. For now, let's assume that both sides still have ships remaining. The next step of the regroup phase is to see if any other players wish to join the battle. In order to join the battle, another ship must be in the same area as that battle. In other words, the ship must be sharing the assignment as the ship currently involved in the battle or on patrol with those ships. So let's say the merchant gypsy has resolved whatever the day's situation was for her. However, the Imperial Scimitar finds herself still locked in battle. The merchant gypsy could then join the Imperial Scimitar in an effort to defeat those enemies. After determining if any players will be joining ongoing battles, players discard all previously played cards. A player may also discard any number of cards from her hand that she wishes to make room for new cards. As a reminder, it's important for all ships in the same area to stay in sync with regards to the battle phases in order to potentially join an ally in need. Also, once the battle is over, the player must discard any cards remaining in her hand. Let's back up for a moment and say that after removing any destroyed ships at the beginning of the regroup phase, all the ships of the enemy team have been destroyed. In that case, the player who initially began the battle will move to the salvage step and roll for scrap for each enemy ship destroyed. To roll for scrap, the player will roll 1 die for each tier of the defeated ship, collecting salvage to the amount indicated by the roll. So, let's say these were both tier 2 ships that were defeated. We would roll 2 dice for that one and get 8 scrap, and then again roll 2 dice for this one and get 4 scrap. The players will repeat this process for each destroyed enemy ship. Once all salvage has been collected, the player will discard the enemy ships. If the player was the only friendly ship in the battle, then naturally all the resulting scrap belongs to her. However, if she had allies join her after the battle began, she may distribute the scrap as she sees fit. Finally, if the battle was a group battle created from an assignment or mission space, the player who was the primary target of an enemy ship when it was destroyed will take the salvage of that ship. Keep in mind, if an enemy ship actually fled the battle due to an effect, the players will not roll for scrap for that ship. Also keep in mind that if no players survive the battle, then no salvage roll will result. At the end of combat, whether the players won the battle or not, all players whose hull was completely damaged are said to have received critical damage and must take a critical damage roll with a single d6. The results of that roll can be found on this reference card under critical damage roll. If somehow the player did not just damage all of her hull upgrades, but actually lost them all as well, then the resupply will generously provide 1 structure hull upgrade free of charge. Anytime the player is instructed to lose a hull upgrade, that player chooses which hull upgrade to lose. If the player is instructed to lose an action deck card, she shuffles her action deck and then loses the top card. The player should be sure to remove any corresponding token from her ship as well. Both the card and the token are removed from the game. If the player is instructed to lose a crew member, the leftmost crew member is lost. The personality is removed from the game and the faction ability is returned to its deck. Next, the player who received critical damage is removed from the assignment and must return to the resupply. If that player had any uninstalled systems that she had gained, those are lost. Also, it's important to note that the salvage phase takes place after the regroup phase. And what this means is that a player cannot roll for salvage for a ship they just destroyed and then join another battle in the same round of play. Occasionally during the game, players will find themselves facing an enemy commander. When told to draw an enemy commander, first draw 1 enemy ship and then draw the enemy commander, placing it on the card like this. You'll notice that the enemy commander covers the ship's normal abilities with his own abilities. Commanders rarely travel alone, and underneath the commander's name, players will find instructions on exactly how many additional ships that commander brings to the fight. In this case, Synthetic Sam brings 1 additional enemy ship. Draw the number of enemy ships indicated and place them in the battle area as well. When fighting an enemy commander, the battle occurs the same way as previously discussed, with the only difference being the enemy commander has provided a new set of abilities for the ship the commander occupies. Also, when a player wins a battle against the enemy commander, she will not roll dice based on the tier of ship. Instead, she will roll a single die against the rewards indicated at the bottom of the commander's card. After the Explore phase, the next phase on the day's agenda is Complete Assignments. If a player is on the last section of an assignment and has successfully completed whatever the assignment's goals were, that player has completed that assignment, collects the reward for the assignment, and then returns to the resupply. However, if a player is not on the final day of an assignment, then they have not completed that assignment and will continue along the path of that assignment unless they choose to abandon it or take critical damage. When a player returns to the resupply, she places her ship on her ship mat, repairs all damaged hull, refreshes any player personality or faction abilities, and refreshes the ship ability. The player may also purchase and sell systems, hire crew members, and install systems currently held in cargo. The final phase of each day is trading. Players may trade with their allies every day with some restrictions. A ship may give up to one system, one crew, or any amount of scrap each day, and may also receive up to one system, one crew, or any amount of scrap. Giving and receiving do not have to occur with the same player. Hull may never be traded. Warlords are a truly special kind of misery, and missions culminating in a warlord battle should only be attempted by the most daring of players. Once a mission with a warlord is selected, the players build the warlord by drawing one warlord personality card. This card defines the warlord's whole strength as well as the overall structure of the battle. Each warlord will have a particular number of abilities as well as wave cards. Draw the number of ability cards and wave cards indicated on the warlord card and place them face down next to the warlord. All of these cards should be placed off to the side until the players reach the warlord icon on the mission progress track. In this way, players will have some idea of what they will be facing and can attempt to equip their ship accordingly. So what exactly are the ability and wave cards? A warlord ability represents the warlord's destructive power and applies to each and every player's ship during every resolve phase of the warlord battle. The wave cards represent the specific challenges the player will face during her battle with the warlord. Each wave brings enemy ships and must be defeated before revealing and moving on to the next wave card, and eventually the warlord himself. Also, keep in mind that the entire warlord battle occurs during a single day. No abilities are refreshed between waves. When the time comes to start the warlord battle, the players must first lay out the cards face up with the ability cards to the left of the warlord and the wave cards to the right. All ability cards will be revealed immediately, whereas only one wave card will be revealed. In this case, there is only one wave card, but if other wave cards existed, then they would be face down, while this wave card would be the only one revealed. Players may not attack the warlord until they resolved all wave cards and fought their way through the corresponding enemies. At the start of the Resolve Enemy Action section of the attack phase, each player must roll once for each warlord action and apply the action indicated. The actions rolled apply only to that player who actually rolled the die. So in this case, the first player would roll once for Firestorm and get 1 damage, roll again for Agile Aggression and get 1 damage, and then the next player would roll once for each ability card. And this will continue until all players have rolled for both ability cards. Some ability cards, such as Disrupting Blast, have an effect found above the die roll section of the text. Any ability found above the die roll section will only trigger once at the beginning of the battle. Once all players have rolled for the warlord's abilities, then the players proceed to resolve any enemy ship actions. During the regroup phase, if the player finds that all enemy ships, other than the warlord of course, have been defeated, then she will discard the current wave card, revealing the next wave card beneath it. If there are no more wave cards, then the players may begin attacking the Warlord directly. Keep in mind, the Warlord will still be activating the ability cards just as before. If during the regroup phase, all of the Warlord's hull cubes have been destroyed, and at least one friendly ship has survived, then the players have successfully defeated the Warlord and won the game. There are two types of elimination found in Zephyr. Standard elimination means players will take critical damage rolls whenever they take full hull damage, just as has been previously discussed in this video. Permanent elimination means as soon as a player takes critical hull damage, they are out of the game. When playing Zephyr in solo mode, all the rules remain the same except for the following. The player gains 10 additional scrap at the beginning of the game, and anytime the player draws an assignment, she actually draws 2 and chooses which one of those she will embark on, if any. And that's how you play Zephyr Winds of Change. There are additional variants found on page 23 of the rulebook, but I'll leave those for you to find on your own. Also, there is a glossary in the back of the book that has a number of the common terms in the game and makes it easy to find definitions for them. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you like my channel, consider subscribing. We've got lots of how to play videos and lots of gameplay videos and all kinds of other videos. And until next time, if you're bored online, board offline.